welcome back to the Button Tree Book Club. We are finishing Lux today. It is a very exciting but also bittersweet. We are talking about Opposition, the end of the Lux series. It's been quite a journey. I read this series, I don't know, it must have been 5-6 years ago, and I loved it then, but I'd forgotten a lot about what happened. And now just getting to the end again, like, it's so satisfying, but it's kind of sad because now it's moving on to the next thing and all that. But I'm excited. We made it here. If you have read the whole series, you probably love it as much as I do. If you don't, well, you know, to each his own. We started off with Katie moving to the middle of nowhere, West Virginia, next door to some aliens, or as they're called, LUX, or Luxan, beings of light, who had the natural alien enemy of the Aram and the government enemy of the DoD, Daedalus. There has been so much that's happened to all these characters. Starting in book 1, you had Damon the jerk being just terrible to Katie, who had no idea why, but then he heals her and she becomes a hybrid. So then we get into book 2, where Blake enters the scene. He's also a hybrid. And Katie's learning about who she's become, what's happened to her. Damon is trying to win her affections because now that she's part of their world, he's like, I don't have to be a jerk anymore, even though we're all a little apprehensive at first. Blake tries to help her and train her, even though his methods are absolutely insane. And it leads to poor character's death, Adam's death, Dee's death almost, Dee, the sister of Damon, and then their brother Dawson, who comes back at the end of book 2 after Katie is abducted and put through way too much. She is put in a cage made of onyx, the natural weapon that can be used against the Luxan, versus obsidian, which can be used against the Aram. And then we have Opal, which comes to book 3, where we learn about Opal. It's this powerful stone. Book 3 was almost guilty of being a connector book, but not quite, because it moves a lot of subplots along, and it ends on a terribly sad note where Katie is abducted. Well, not abducted. She's taken prisoner, I guess. She's captured, whatever you want to say, by DoD Daedalus, because Blake is a jerk and turns her in because he sucks like that. But it's okay because he dies in book 4 by Katie's hand. We also had the subplot of her mother was dating a psychopath who used Katie to get healed. It didn't actually work. Well, it kind of did, but then it didn't. So then Katie kills him too. Now, don't get me wrong. Katie is an amazing character, and she is not a murderer. Like, all of this is done in, like, self-defense. And in just, like, it being, like, she's being put in that position where it's fight or die, pretty much. Katie's character is so exceptionally strong through this whole series. Like, she is a book nerd, so I'm glad that she's not that type of character where the second something bad happens, she goes, oh my gosh, I don't think I can handle it, it's too much, oh my goodness. No, she's like, I am here, I am present, I'm gonna help, I'm on your team, and she stays that way the whole time. Does she have some emotional moments? Yeah, anyone would. She went from being a normal girl who just loves books to being a part alien human that's dating an alien and surrounded by trouble because of the aliens. And all of that led up to book 4. She was in Daedalus. Blake met his unfortunate end. Damon came to Daedalus, joined her. They found a way to get out because of the help of Archer, something called an origin. Origins are the children of male Lux female hybrids. They are the children of them, and they are super powerful, super smart, super strong. And we also find out in book 4 that Beth is pregnant with an origin, because that's how that happens. And they get out of Daedalus at the end of book 4. They meet up, that's where they find out that Beth is pregnant. Let's see, book 4 is also when Katie and Damon get married. Yep, that happens. And then at the very end of book 4, the Luxan have come to Earth and they've taken Dawson, Damon, and Dee, and that is where book 4 left us. So now we are to book 5. I know, that was my as short as possible summary as possible of book 1 through 4, because I could probably go book by book and talk about all of them, and it would probably take me a solid 5 minutes per book, because there's a lot that happens. But you should have been watching all the other videos, so hopefully I don't need to repeat too much, because I'm going to spoil a lot today. Alright, so book 5, it starts with Katie and Beth and Archer and Luce is what I'm calling him. I'm calling him Luce, okay? If his name is pronounced another way, then tell me. So they are by themselves. They're in like a cabin, like a mansion-like cabin, I think, in, I want to say Idaho, if I remember that correctly. Maybe. And they're trying to figure out what to do next. But it doesn't last too long because Beth needs things and they just need supplies in general. So Archer and Katie go into town, and who are there but the Lux that are invading? They are taking over major cities, and they have learned that they are, oh, what is the word? Like, they're taking DNA from humans and becoming those humans, but the process kills the human. It's really, really disturbing, like, because Katie and Archer go into a grocery store, and they literally watch this happen, and there's like, oh my gosh. So that is what the Luxen are doing. They're pretending to be people to not make there be so much panic, and so that nobody knows who's good, who's bad. It's kind of a crazy good plan. But of course, with any book, there's going to be flaws. So they go to the grocery store and they see all this, and Katie, the wonderful, strong person she is, she sees a child in trouble, so she goes to help the child, send them on their way, but it gets her captured. This time not by Day of Dallas, at least. Well, maybe that would have been better. Who knows at this point? Well, at that point. She is found by Dawson, and Dawson is a little harsh. Well, so what's happened to the Luxen is because they're all together, they kind of have this, like, single mind kind of deal. Like, they also have independent thoughts, but, like, the leader is like, all right, we're now a collective, we're now a hive, we all now have the same goal, and there's a certain loss of independent control. And so Dawson doesn't really mean to hurt Katie, but he gets her and he takes her to where Damon, Dee, and all of them are staying, along with other Luxen. Damon is already kind of like very back and forth because there is a way to break it, and Katie is that way for him. Go figure. It's true love. I'm sorry. That part was a little corny, just a teeny bit. And this is also like the Katie Damon dialogue switching from their perspective still continues in this one. So of course, like, still Damon always thinking about Katie, always thinking about sex. There's a whole, like, he just constantly thinks about sex. And like, I guess now they're married, so it's not terribly wrong. But he's also still like with the Luxen, and it's very weird. So she's brought to the Luxen colony, and he pretty much tries to explain like, oh, the only reason she's here is because if I die, she dies. If she dies, I die. So we gotta protect her so I don't die. But the Luxen are kind of like, I don't know about this, and obviously because they pretty much despise everybody that's not Luxen. They despise the Origins. They despise the hybrids. I mean, I think with them, like, they can't control the hybrids and the Origins, and they're polluted by humans. But Damon breaks out of the control. He goes into his human form, and he says, like, Katie, you brought me out of it. Like, yeah. And Dawson, I think, is the same way. We don't see it as hard, like, because Damon goes from a very much like, I'm Luxen, I'm in it, and then like Katie is his switch. Like, there is that moment where there's a switch. Dawson, I think, always had it a bit. Like, I don't think he fully, I don't know how to explain it. I don't think he was as full into it as Dee and Damon. Dee takes a lot longer, though. Dee comes around at the end because Katie talks her out of it. But that's still a ways down the road. So then the idea is the Luxen know, because they have origins. They do have origins within their ranks, and they use those origins to, like, read their minds. So they know, like, Damon and Dawson are not really in this. They're pretending to be in this. But then Damon, Dawson, and Katie escape because, you know, it's just how this has to go. But they pretty much go out to a world that is, like, in total destructive chaos. The Luxen have just obliterated pretty much everything. And they've taken over, so people are very much in chaos and pandemonium. And there's a lot of destruction. It does get, like, there's moments, like, when they're driving on a highway and they see, like, what the Luxen have done to just, like, the highways and the cars and, unfortunately, people in cars. You have those moments of it just kind of hurts. And you're just like, oh, man, that's so much destruction. And, like, what I appreciate about Katie is that even though she's been through all these horrible things, so many bad things have happened, she still has such a heart for everyone. From there, though, they escape, and then they manage to get to a base where, of course, now they have to go to the government and be like, all right, you were right, kind of, sort of. But the government's now under, like, different direction. That woman Nancy, that was, yeah, no, she's not running nothing because she is a terrible, terrible human being. But they go there, and then they're trying to come up with a plan. And this is before they get Dee. Dee comes in much later after, I'll get there. But Damon, Dawson, and Katie, they go to this base. I think they said it was in, oh, I can't keep track of all these places they go to. They go to a lot of places in this book. They're constantly traveling. But they go to this base, and that's where Beth is, and Luce, and Archer. They meet up with all of them, and they're like, all right, we gotta have a plan to stop these guys. And their plan, which I actually think is kind of brilliant, they're like, all right, here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna go get the Arum, however you pronounce that, I still don't know. We're gonna go get the Arum, because the Arum are the natural predators of the Luxon. And everyone's like, you're crazy, they're never gonna help you. And he's like, well, you know. And then Luce, I don't know how you say his name, he's like, oh, well, if we want to get the Arum involved, well, I know who you gotta talk to. Hunter. Hunter came in, I want to say, book 4. When Damon was trying to figure out how to get Katie out of Daedalus, he goes to Luce, and Luce is already talking to Hunter. Hunter is an Arum, and Hunter owes Luce a favor. So Hunter, goodness, names. Hunter agrees to take Archer, Katie, and Damon to the Arum holdup, which apparently is in Georgia. So that's where they go next. And then they go to the crazy, and he is bonkers. He's weird. He's insane, and what happens there is very weird and strange, and I'm not even going to talk about it because it's weird. But after a lot of conversation and things occurring, he agrees that he will rally all of the Arum that are in the United States and are gonna go attack where the Luxon are hiding out, because they're gonna go try to take out the capital. Which, of course, they know if they get the capital, then they pretty much get the country, because then, like, you get, like, all the important politicians and all the important places, and then pretty much you've got the country, and then after that, it's not too hard, then the world. So they're like, all right, we gotta stop them before that happens. And apparently, all the Luxon, or the main Luxon, are all holed up where this all began, in little middle of nowhere, West Virginia, and that's where they go next. But before that is where the big thing happens. So they go back to Hunter's place, and that is where Dee finds them, and that is where Dee finally comes back to join them, because Katie pretty much talks her back to sense. Because what Dee is saying is, she's like, she doesn't want to remember, she doesn't want to feel, she likes that they think for her, because she suffered a lot. Like, Katie and Damon went missing, Dawson's gone missing and come back, like, everyone has suffered so much, and she lost Adam, and so she's in that place where she's like, she doesn't want to feel all of those emotions. And by being with the Luxon, she doesn't feel those things so intently. But Katie talks her out of it, so she joins their fray. And then they are up to West Virginia with Dee. So now it is Dee, Damon, Katie, and Archer, all headed up to West Virginia. And this is where it's really heartbreaking. So they get there, and because the idea is that they know that the leader is an Origin. It's Ethan. Ethan was the head of the colony from the beginning. And they're like, oh my gosh, he was just, like, he's one of the ringleaders of this whole affair. And, like, he's known Damon, Dawson, Dee this whole time, and they're just like, how did we never see it? We should have. But now they're going back there to try to lure him out, because they know if they can take him down, they can take out a ton of them at the same time. So that's what they do. But before any of that happens, the unfortunate happens, where the thing is, if that's where all the Luxon are, you know there's not too many people left there. And the one thing that Katie was hoping beyond hoping was that her mother was still alive. And the unfortunate reality is that she's not. And it is a heartbreaking moment. I think the only thing that made it a little less heartbreaking is the fact that it switches between Katie and Damon during that time. And, like, I get it, like, you don't want to write that heartbreaking moment, but I think the audience would have appreciated seeing that humanizing moment for Katie, that heartbreak moment, but by putting it in Damon's perspective, it almost put us at a distance to observe it, which I think is also good, but I wish we could have gotten a little bit more of that moment, just because I think we've seen her go through so much, and I think it would have been a great time, again, to show her strength, and knowing that, yes, this horrible thing has happened. Her heart is breaking. She is devastated, but she also knows, I gotta fight in a minute. And she does. And once again, she's the one who takes out she takes out Ethan when he arrives, and because Ethan is a jerk. Ethan is a horrible, horrible person. He's one of the ringleaders of this whole affair. Takes him out, they take out a bunch of them, and then the Arum and the government show up, and they take out a lot of Luxon. And then the Luxon pretty much flee Earth, and everything kind of goes back to, it doesn't really go back to normal. There's like a whole, like, new world that's going to be established. And now the government, run by people that are like, we didn't treat the aliens right, we brought this on ourselves. Yeah, you did. I mean, the whole names for everything, like Prometheus, like, is the big drug that they use to help the hybrids and the Origins. And then there's like Daedalus, like, they were very arrogant. So they kind of brought this whole disaster on themselves. But they decide, they're like, okay, we got to fix our ways because we don't want this to happen again. We don't want those that are already on Earth to not be treated fair. We don't want them to feel like they need to rise up and rebel. So they come up with like a brand new program, and there's all these things that go on. It's really cool. Now, believability, I don't know. You've got tons and tons of Luxin, but then again, you've got tons and tons of Arum. I don't know. It works. It works. Full believability, I don't know. But it works as a conclusion, and then we get to see just a tiny bit of like what life is afterwards. Damon and everybody, Damon, Katie, Dawson, Dee, everyone moves out to like Colorado. They're all gonna go to college. They're all starting the new chapter in their lives. Beth has the baby. It's a girl, and apparently it's a really big deal because thinking about it, like we never heard about any female origins, and they have a daughter, so that's a really big thing. I almost wish that there was like a little mini sequel novella just about like life with this origin. I think it would have been interesting. But, oh well. That is about it. It was a really good series. I mean, overall, I give this series a 5-star. Like, it is really good. The characters are really strong. There's so much character development. The characters are believable. The dialogue is on point. Like, I love sarcastic characters, and Damon and Katie bring that out so well. Their characters, like, you love the characters. It's a wonderful, wonderful series. I highly recommend it. If you have not read this series, you absolutely should. If you read this series, I'd love to know what you thought of it. Maybe you loved it too. Who were your favorite characters? What were your favorite parts? Maybe you didn't like it. I'd love to know why. Because I understand there's a lot of people that got rubbed the wrong way by book 1. And a lot of people stop after book 1 because of some of the things that happened in book 1. And I get that. And I think if you can get past that and get to book 2 and just see that it does improve, well, it improves in some ways, and then it gets really dark and intense in other ways. But again, I think it is such a good series. It is such a good book. But now we are saying the end to Lux. But we are going to go back to Nevermore. That'll be up. We'll be doing book 2 this week. Book 3, ending that trilogy, will be next week. And then we will also be continuing Prophecy of the Sisters. We'll be doing book 2 and 3, let me think. 2 weeks from now? Yeah, 2 weeks from now. It'll be going back to Prophecy of the Sisters, I think. Maybe it's next week. I don't know. I'm not sure. I don't remember. But that will be coming soon. As well as we've got Saturday Book Club, which is, oh goodness, which one is this? It is Conceal Don't Feel. That's what it is. That's where we're at. Conceal Don't Feel, one of the twisted tales based on the Disney movie Frozen. So if you like Disney, which I'm obsessed with Disney, I'm really excited about these twisted tales, then you should be back and see our discussion of Twisted Tale, or maybe you're going to follow our other series. But if you are not subscribed to our channel, you totally should be. We are constantly working on more for book club. We're doing gaming, we're doing crafting, working on lots of projects that'll be coming out soon. And we will see you in the next video. Bye!